All right, we are back and it's time for us to have a look at the newspapers. And definitely that was an amazing song, Omema, by Sean Lamore, that talks about leaving the 99. At some point he says, what kind of math is this? He leaves the 99 to go after the one. But that's the kind of God that we serve. But anyway, moving on, it's time for us to have a look at the Daily Nation and also the Standard and the Business Daily. Welcome to the newspaper review. My name is Beatrice Nudi.
Yes, welcome back. My name is George Gishuru, and we start with the Standard, and they go with the headline, Damned Lot, Forgotten Trio, as the acting IG of police, Gilbert Masengeli, engages in a back and forth with the courts, this time threatening judges with withdrawal of their security. 3 men are nowhere to be found, weeks after it was claimed that they were abducted by police officers. What happened to them? And why is the police service mandated under the Constitution to protect limb and property, turning a deaf ear to efforts to find them? And I think is a story that we also, those were the questions we are asking yesterday, that there are families that are more, that are not aware of where their loved ones are. And I'm glad that also the Standard is picking up the same, that in as far as we are focusing on the court, the contempt of court by the acting Inspector General, there are families that are not aware of where their loved ones are, and the court finds it desirable to impose this sentence as a coercive order as opposed to a punitive order. The acting police IG may redeem himself and comply by availing himself before this court. That was Justice Lawrence Mugambi when he was giving the order. And it's a story you can read on page 4. And the 3 men, Aslam Longnot, Jamil Longnot, and Bob Njage. So we have 2 brothers there who are still missing. Up to now, they are still missing. So read that story on page 4. I also see, yes.
Actually, on the same, I see that it has been touched on page 6 of the Daily Nation here, entitled A Controversial Affidavit That Deepened Masengeli's Woes. And I see here that 3 days, Justice Lawrence Mugambi, who handled the case, directed the police to charge Bob Misheni Njage and brothers Jamil and Aslam Longton, or produce their bodies if at all they were dead. And 3 days later, the LSK was back in court, stating that the police were yet to comply with the directive. And this time, the LSK asked the court to summon the acting Inspector General of Police, Gilbert Masengeli, to explain why the application for habeas corpus was yet to be complied with. Then started the court summons that ended last week in the sentencing of Mr. Masengeli to 6 months imprisonment for contempt of court. Before Justice Mugambi imposed the sentence, the officer in charge of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI Kitengela, Joseph Indeke, filed an affidavit in court seeking to absolve the police of claims of abducting the 3 men. But then the court rejected the affidavit and an explanation by a state council on the position of the police on the missing 3. So that's a story that has also been elaborated in more detail. That is on page 6. And actually, in a statement on Monday, Mr. Masengeli himself said his responsibilities as the acting IG of police are to secure the nation and to attend operational meetings virtually and the entire day at different locations. He said that in a bid to comply with the court orders, he assigned the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Eliud Langat, to attend court on his behalf on September the 9th. So there's that back and forth of saying, kuna vitu nilikuwa nafanya and all that. But we continue to follow up with the same, because this is not a small story.
No, it's not.
It's a big thing. 3 lives are at stake here. And 3 families are still asking questions. So, yes.
I see front page, but covered extensively on page 6. Ruto borrows Uhuru script to tame Gachagua. This is all about politics. And Ruto toes Uhuru playbook in battle with Gachagua to reclaim Mount Kenya. Ruto, then Deputy President, wrestled Mount Kenya from Uhuru Kenyatta and eventually won. He is not willing to let the region go that easily and is ready to fight it out with his deputy. And you can read that story there. And there's a picture of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua reading a Bible during centenary celebrations in Kirinyaga County on Sunday. And as soon as he landed back from Germany, President Ruto rushed to the Mount Kenya region, a stronghold in the 2022 elections, that is fast escaping his grip. It had been weeks since the head of state toured his favorite destination, a round of trips in former Prime Minister Odinga's backyard, and 2 back-to-back foreign tours have kept him from central Kenya. And of course, we know the joke that is also doing rounds, Usiguze Murima, you know, because that is attributed to DP Gachagua. And for me, it's, you know, politics, 2 years after the elections. And you saw some of the things that actually they said during the campaigns are very fresh. I remember once the then deputy president said, once elected into office, I will not allow anyone to disrespect my deputy president as the current president has disrespected me. And allowed others to disrespect me. And so, of course, now you can see, and the onslaught actually being led by the majority leader in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah. He's the one who is having a real go at Mr. Gachagua. So let us see how this one pans out. But it's unfortunate that it's all political instead of fighting for the interests of wananchi. We are coming from a background where we had protests of what young people wanted addressed. I don't know if it is being addressed or we are still having this, you know, kingpin who is leading this region. It's not about region. It's not about tribes. It's about the well-being and welfare of Kenyans. Still on the same page, page 6, Kabete Institute shut as protests also rock multimedia varsity. Yesterday we had a protest at Kabete National Polytechnic and also Multimedia University, and now Kabete National Polytechnic has been closed indefinitely following day-long protests by students. Yesterday, police were also on the spot for using excessive force while quelling protests that had rocked Multimedia University. In both cases, students protested against issues that were institution-specific. They ranged from sanitation, lack of water, and increased fees. And on page 7, New Look Cabinet briefed on state projects. This was the first cabinet meeting under the broad-based government. The head of state briefed the cabinet on several issues, including corruption, various bills, UHC, among others. You can read what was agreed on page 7. And I see night meetings as Ruto Gachagua allies face off. Kikuyu MP Kimani Ichung'wah seen as the face against the deputy president. Embakasi Central MP Benjamin Gadhiru leading the defense of embattled DP. That is on page 8. And DCI wants boss of agency linked to North Rift Jobs saga prosecuted. First Choice Recruitment Agency has been accused of defrauding over 8,000 youths. The Senate fined its director Judy Chepchirchir $500,000 shillings for ignoring summons. And also on regulation, I see you risk 3 years in jail, 5 million shillings fine. This is for running church that is not registered.
Wow.
So clerics who run unregistered religious organizations risk a 5 million shillings fine, 3 years in jail, or both if a new bill seeking to regulate religious organizations is passed by the Senate. So a very interesting story. You can read that and get to understand what is happening. Then I see on the pullout, enterprise, healthcare and business. Diana Okello's niche in aviation medicine. That is the enterprise pullout. Then from the counties, Ousted Nakuru Majority Leader reinstated by Disputes Tribunal. Langat was ousted by 31 ruling party MCAs and replaced with William Mutai. Ward reps insist they will not allow him back even after he was reinstated by Tribunal. And also I see from the counties, Endarasha Academy pupils who perished in fire to be laid to rest next week. The 21 students who died in a fire at Hillside Endarasha Academy will be buried next week. The school will reopen after the burials to allow Kenya Primary School Education Assessment KPSEA students to prepare for upcoming exams. Parents are waiting to receive the DNA results, which will help them identify the remains of their children. That's a story on page 17. And you can't tax our offerings, churches tell state. That is a section of clerics have rejected plans by the government to tax offerings following the release of a report by a task force set up by President William Ruto to investigate activities of rogue preachers and cultism. It's on page 18. Then I see on the business section, Kenya signs marine training deal with Global Shipping Line. Women-owned MSMEs to get 164 billion shillings funding, and European stocks rally on eve of Federate decision. And on the sports pages, I see Man City brace for Inter reunion as Akanji fears a tough schedule. Man City beat the Italian champions last year to win the title. Defender Akanji says he's not a fan of the new Champions League model. And so we have a host of matches being played today. Club Brugge will take on Dortmund. PSG will be at home to Girona. Celtic will be taking on Slovan as Bologna lock on with Shakhtar Donetsk. And I see this is ambitious award, eager to leave a mark on her World Cup debut, and how Diamond League season delivered memorable moments. That is the sports section inside the Standard.
All right, and coming down to the Daily Nation, is of course Adani taking the top page here. What do they know about Adani deals? These are the questions. What are our state people, the government officials, the who is who in our country?
Because it's a case of who is who.
Yeah. It's important. And actually, President William Ruto here saying that has said he would be a madman to sell JKIA, which came as a defensive statement because of the accusations and people ranting and saying, hey, you know, unataka kutuuza. But now coming down to it, I see that that's why I call it defensive, because we are not really getting a solution. Because he's saying, I have seen many people saying William Ruto wants to sell the airport. Am I a madman? How do you sell a strategic national asset? You have to be insane, say the president. Instead, the president argued that it was only a lease, and without naming Adani or any other investor, added that the private capital from the lease would help Kenya catch up with its regional competitors who are building new airports with larger passenger capacities. And the worst bit of it is now nearly 2 months later, Adani's proposal for a $2 billion, that is 258 billion shilling, 30-year JKIA concession agreement has become a political hot potato, especially after details emerged that the government has also lined up 4 additional multi-billion shilling deals for Adani, also in the energy sector. And in the energy sector, of course, the energy CS Opiyo Wandayi actually defended Adani, saying that they have built cumulative transmission network of 21,783 kilometers of power lines and 61,686 MVA of transformation capacity. They privately own more energy infrastructure than Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania combined, said CS Wandayi. But now the big question is here, we are talking of 30 good years. And President William Ruto is calling the airport, it's basically built of canvas. We need to make it look better. We need to get to that place where it's competing with other states. But now the question comes here, and people are wondering, are you saying we don't have money to actually renovate this place, as opposed to literally selling our birthright? Because that is what it is. 30 years is not a short period of time. It will be way after he has left the government. You
see, different people have raised different issues with the Adani deal. And all of us, because as he said, the president, that JKIA is a national asset. And so everyone must and should have an opinion on the same. Personally, as a taxpayer, I have my own reservations. Number one, you may not be selling it, but for me, 30 years is tantamount to selling it.
It's true.
You see, so that's number one. I told you 30 years ni mtoto azaliwe saa hizi. They will be 30. You know, and through life and everything. So for me, I have an issue with the longevity of that deal. Number two, I also have issues with the opaque way that the deal is being done. There is lack of transparency. There is no integrity. There is a lot of, hidden things. Yet it's a public asset. So if it's a public asset, it should be subjected to public scrutiny, and all of us agree that yes, we need this, yes, we need, how long should this deal be, and all. These are the pros and the cons. This is what Adani will be gaining. This is what Kenya will be gaining at the end of this deal. Number 3 for me also is, why was it single sourcing? Why was it only Adani? I'm sure there are so many other companies who would be interested. So why not open it up and allow
auction,
exactly
kind of
it should be a bidding,
kind of
so that at the end, when you have bidding now, it means that we will be at an advantaged position. So for me, those are some of the reasons that I am saying, you know what, there is something fishy about this. And also, why are you allowing them? Now they take over the aviation industry, JKIA, because when you take over JKIA, that's it. It's the aviation sector. And then you are giving them the energy sector, the Ketraco deal. So what is it with this Adani? What is so unique about this Adani that we are now allowing them to get into strategic sectors of our economy?
That's a very good question that needs to be answered.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of questions that people are asking themselves. We should have at least had a bidding session. Because whenever we come to things like this, when it comes to leasing, these big decisions that have to be made, you don't just consider one.
No.
You consider, it has to come from a place of people applied, people did this, and it's a whole
This is the list
procedure.
of people who came out and shown interest on the same.
This,
and we have chosen Adani because of 1, 2, 3, and because others were. Explain to us.
The fact that it was hidden.
We didn't know even about this thing up until the protests.
The protest.
That's
so when it came out.
If we didn't have the protest, by now,
what happened?
There's some Indian company that is now taking over JKI. So there's a lot of questions to be answered before we agree on this deal.
Exactly.
For me,
and even him making that statement of, am I a madman?
Yeah.
You know, that in itself is so defensive.
Yes.
That statement alone just makes you feel he's trying to cover up for something.
You know, the Bible says, whoever much is given, much is expected.
That is true.
And when if there's one thing that is so, precious, trust. Once you lose trust, and people lose trust in you, so that's why anything this government does, there's something, anything, because they have to regain that trust, because we can't trust them. Everything they say is they either contradict themselves, is either it's a lie, because if you don't do what you promise, what is that?
Yeah, that's a lie.
Endelea na magazeti.
Jamani, this Adani, we can stay on it for so long. But we really pray that God will come through, because at this point, there's no one else who can save us except God himself. And moving on, of course, there's the sad news on page 13. Jambo Bwana, I was just singing that song this morning. Hit composer Ted Kalanda Harrison dies at 72. This is a story on page 13. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Most of us, you know the song, but you don't even know who did it. But
it's an old one.
It's a very old one, and that's on page 13. And it's still being sung even now. You see people whispering it. But anyway, moving on to page 6, I see baptism of fire awaits Kanja if MPs approve his nomination as police boss. And page 4 to 5, Nyong'o whips ODM members to back Ruto's government. And page 2, crisis looms at universities after talks by state lecturers collapsed. Education CS Julius Ogamba asks for time to consult other relevant government agencies on the same. But at the moment, we have a big crisis because the universities are definitely on strike. And page 3, I see devastated Hillside Academy director calls for prayers. I see Kenya says the school would ensure national examination candidates are taken care of. And 164 is the number of boys said to be in the dorm at the time of the tragedy. 21 boys perished in one of the worst school fire incidents that we have ever had in Kenya. And this is a story on page 3. You can look at it on the same. He has called for prayers, and indeed we ought to pray, because this feels like an attack, almost like a distraction from the main thing that we need to be focusing on. And I see here, page 5, Kalonzo asked President to speed up reconstitution of polls body. 7, being a fully constituted independent electoral and boundaries commission, has 7 commissioners. So that's a story on page 5. And page 6, baptism of fire awaits Kanja should he get top police job. Officer will find a police judiciary storm and a simmering promotion controversy allegedly influenced by nepotism. That's a story on page 6. Page 7, of course, is the Adani multi-billion shilling Adani deals put Ruto top officials on the spot. You can look at the same. And remember also the sports CS Kipchumba Murkomen, he was in the transport docket when Adani JKIA deal was brokered. Transport CS David Chirchir, he was in energy when Adani power deals were entered into. So you look at it and it's like, wait a minute, all right. And the both of them, we have the engagement whereby now Adani also has a say when it comes to the energy. But we continue to follow up on the same. And page, okay, let's go to the parenting. And that is on the DN2 today. Would you take your young child to boarding school? From hectic work hours to unstable homes, an educator and a parent share reasons why some parents opt to send children to boarding schools, even amidst the fears that are there as well. So I'm seeing Anne Munene saying if a parent is importing things from China to go and sell them in Malawi, they don't have time to sit down and check the homework and the handwriting of a child. So we have busy schedules. And that's one of the things, you know, that is being said that is causing most homes and even unstable homes sometimes causing them to opt, wacha tu nimpeleke huko. So we don't consider what the child will go through while there. We are only thinking of ourselves in terms of these are my work hours. This is the, you know, the schedule that I have to work around with. But look at that story. That is on the DN2 today. And also there's this very interesting one that I've seen asking, zile writings unazionanga kwa taya, do you know what they mean?
Oh, yes. Or something 195, yes, 185.
Yes. Yeah, it's asking, what do all the writings on your tire walls mean? Watu wengine hawajui.
Hoja taya inaenda.
Unaigonga gonga, unasikia pressure iko sawa.
Unakanyanga.
Yeah, but it's here mentioned. We have the width, the aspect ratio, the construction, the rim diameter, the load index, and the speed rating. So, I mean, you need to know this thing. Most of the coded information inscribed in tire walls is not essential to the average motorist, but it doesn't hurt to know what it means. That's a story on the DN2 page 2. And moving on to the back page, EACC conflicting positions on nominee stamp MPs. Mr. Mudavadi forwarded Mr. Kimei's name for appointment as competition authority boss. This is a story that is on the back page. And I see here on the employment beat, Uhuru's roadside directive on jobs haunts KPA bosses. Coming to page 31, World Cup novices junior starlets target top 16 finish. Anasema, we have a big task and we are up to the challenge, declares head coach Cheche. And moving on, I see Oilers' Dennis Abukuse, most lethal player at 2024 Kenya Sevens Series. Kenya Shujaa player shows he is most devastating with the ball in hand, scoring a circuit of 32 tries high from 4 legs played. And lastly, I see Kenya risks ban as a dark ones of funding shortage. So this is on the budget cuts, doping fight in danger due to reduced allocation. A story that is on the Daily Nation, and that is on page 28. That's it.
Quickly, the Business Daily, they go with the headline, KRA catches 461 tycoons amid tax cheats crackdown. I also see CEOs face 3 million shillings fines, jail over whistleblower protection rules. And then I see bonus freeze, layoffs hit payee collections. That is, layoffs and freeze in bonus payouts for workers in corporate Kenya resulted in a shortfall in the collection of payroll taxes by 25.8 billion shillings in the year to June. And court backs firing of NIS man in passports bribery racket. You can grab your favorite copy of your daily, get to see what's being reported. People, let's continue to pray for this +254.
Absolutely. And right about now, it's time for us to have a look at the video of the day. We'll come back, talk about it before we usher in today's convo. See you in a short while.